Hey guys, it's Tara with the Quilt District, and I am almost finished with the machine quilting on this quilt, which I'm showing you the back of because it's kind of a secret project and I can't show you the front right now. But this will still do fine for our purposes of this video, where I'd like to talk to you about burying your threads and the tools that I use to do that. So you know, if you've machine quilted, that when you start and stop, you bury your threads. Excuse me, you lock your stitches. So you set your stitch length to 0 and you go up and down about 2 or 3 times, and that'll lock your stitch in there. So you also know that you have the tails. At the start of your stitching, you'll probably have both at the top of your quilt, and at the end of a stitch run, I suppose you'd call it, you will have one at the back and one at the top. At least in the method that I use, I do. So we're going to show you from the back, and a few tools that I use that I think are absolutely key. And this is probably the best tip. Excuse my unmanicured nails. A self-threading needle. I'm trying to get that to focus there. All right, so you can get these self-threading needles. Oh my gosh, that will save you so much heartache when you're doing this. These, I believe, this particular needle is a Fons and Porter brand. You can also get them in Clover, and I imagine Dritz or someone else has a version as well. So self-threading needle. So in a self-threading needle, let's see, let me see if I can get up here. I am a one-woman show, you guys. I've got the camera around my neck. Okay, here we go. So in a self-threading needle, you pop the needle onto the thread on the end, and then voila. Saves you a lot of time. So I use those religiously. I also use these hold seam guides. It's a magnetic seam guide that is made to go on your sewing machine, on your plate of your sewing machine, and hold your fabric against it as you sew. But I use it to keep track of my needles. So as I'm working all over the quilt, and I'm not just setting my needle down somewhere and losing it. Now you see I'm handling this other needle here, and it's just a large embroidery needle. And the reason I have this is I'm not burying threads with this because it's just much too large. I don't want to create larger holes in my fabric than need be. So what I have this one for is if there are ever times when I have a thread that I need to bury that's gotten locked under some of the stitches, I'll use this to kind of fish it out. Let me see if this is one of those. It isn't, but so you get the idea. Sometimes if you've let these go and you do another line of stitches, and it'll kind of trap this thread in there. So I'll use this to fish it out because it's got a blunt end. So I'm not going to be stabbing my fabric with the sharp end of the needle. I'm going to use the blunt end. And mostly, if I can get in there and do very detailed picking, I'll use this. And I use this instead of a seam ripper to do that because I don't want to accidentally tear my my threads and make them too short, or that are so short they're difficult to work with. One of the beauties of using these self-threading needles, though, is if your tail is short, you can still grab onto it and pull it through. And there are a few tricks you'd learn along the way to do that. Also very important, I find, anywhere in my studio, at my sewing machine, and when I'm burying threads, are tipped tweezers. Not the slanted tips, but the pointy tip tweezers. Man, I use the heck out of my tweezers. Scissors that I like for burying threads are these curved scissors, because and you'll see in a second, when I go to cut the threads, I feel like I'm safer against the fabric, that I won't be cutting the fabric. Of course, you can use small little embroidery needles or something like that. You just want to be careful that it's something that is easy to handle and manipulate. You wouldn't want to use shears or large clippers or scissors for this. Nothing heavy duty, because you would be really upset if you clipped your fabric, especially on the front. Now, a balloon. Some of you who do hand quilting and such are probably familiar with this little trick. This, if you get in a position where your needle is difficult to pull through, this will help you with the grabby. It makes it really grabby. You can cut up a balloon. You can use just a little bit on it, and it just gives you added grip to yank it through. Okay, so I like to have one of these around. All right, so let's get on with the show. And let me see, I'm going to just move the camera here a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so in this position, this particular seam, I'm going to pull up the green one because it's going to be easier for you to see. And I'm going to pop my needle. You hear a little pop, very faint. But all right, so pop your needle onto your thread. Put your other hand underneath like this, so you can feel that you're not going through to the other side. You don't want to go through to the other side with this needle. Sorry for that clicking noise. You want to be sure that you're running this through between the layers, into the batting area, okay? So try to find a little spot right where that thread is coming up. Find a little spot very near that. Not the same hole it came up in, because then you're undoing what you did. But right next to it. Sometimes I like to, if I'm on the edge of the quilt, I'll just grab it up like this. All right, let me see here. All right, now then run it with, again, your finger is on the bottom or the other side of the quilt, depending on if you're on the top or the bottom of the quilt. The other side of the quilt, feeling for that needle to make sure that it doesn't come through. You're going to run it through a kind of perpendicular to the quilt after you pierce the fabric. You come up about an inch away. Okay, let's double check the front. I'm going to show you. This is a little sneak peek. See, my needle did not go through. All right, we know that it's buried in the layers there. I've given about an inch. I'm going to pull that through. I may need my grabby, my little grabby balloon. See, that helps me grab that. There. Now, this little point looks perfect. I'm going to put that needle back on my little magnet, grab my scissors, and I've come up here. I am going to trim right there, close but not risking cutting the fabric. And then sometimes you take your nail or your finger and kind of rub it in. Sometimes if it's in not such a tight spot as this, I will kind of manipulate the layers so that it'll kind of suck that thread back down in there, that little tail. So now you don't have the green thread poking out anywhere, and it's just perfectly clean. All right, I hope that was useful for you guys, and I will talk to y'all soon. Can't wait to show you this project, the front of it. All right, take care. Bye.